Good. How are you?
I am well. I apologize for being a moron last week, and I was tied up in a bunch of things, and for whatever reason, in my brain, I thought this call was at 5:30 because I have another call tomorrow that's at 5:30, and
Uh,
so I come out to the garage at like 5:25. I pop in and I go, oh, oh yeah, dude, you're about 25 minutes late, dummy. So
okay, but you know
yeah,
what? It occurred to me too that I didn't get a notification last week that there was going to be a Q&A.
right,
So yeah, I
yeah.
mean, I came at 5 and I waited 10 minutes and I'm like, well, it's not happening. And then
Yeah,
anyway, but
that was me being an idiot and realize and forgetting like we ran a webinar last week, and so we
uh,
were doing all this prep, and so and I was trying to fix something that had been busted in the funnel, and so we're back again today, so that's good news. Today what I want to talk about is I want to talk about what I look at as the customer journey for Rebuild, and what my goal is when I'm working with someone, and identifying a couple traps along the way that happen that people wind up running into, and then then they run into a problem, and a little bit of the gap of where um, the healthcare system kind of fails, or I don't know, I would use the word fail, but the it leaves a person sometimes kind of hanging. So initially, because of the last 26 years, I've worked with injuries and athletes and all the rest of that stuff. Um, that that was always like a well, that was the way I could distinguish myself in the massage industry, because um, there was no way I was giving anyone a decent relaxation massage. So because it just, even when I tried, I couldn't do it. Like, it just didn't work. Um, like I would have like one offs, but like the one-offs weren't interesting for me enough to like the one-offs that I had where I actually stuck my elbow in someone and their pain went away. I was more interested in solving that thing than I was trying to figure out how to put people to sleep on a table with relaxing. Dude, if I hear, there's a couple things I don't ever want to experience in my life again. If I hear one more Enya song for the rest of my life, oh my God, like, oh, terrible. So yeah, um, but so the way that I kind of look at this thing for people is, we start with an injury, largely because that's where my background really, my quote unquote expertise, was put for a long time, and then as we start to work through the injury, what the next step is, I want to get us to a place where we start to build some resiliency and we can start to test the injury. So what happens in the beginning oftentimes is that we'll have an injury and maybe the pain goes away, but the moment that we try to get back to doing something that's more active or strenuous or challenging, then there's a time period where that work no longer, the rest or whatever it is that we did, um, where it doesn't work any longer. And usually it's somewhere between like a 1 to 3 or 4 week pattern. And then from there, the goal is to then get you back to activity. And what I find is that when we help someone get out of pain, they naturally start to become, or at least the people that I've worked with, they naturally start to become more active. So they start challenging their body more. And so then now the fun really starts. And the goal is to get people from, kind of beat up and broken down to the place where they're confident enough in their body that they can start to go explore the fringes of things that they were interested in before. And then from there, how can we then support that increased activity so that that person can go out and live a more active life, be more confident in their body, and then also along the way pick up new capabilities and skills. And then lastly, and then in that in that kind of performance enhancement phase, can we get you performing at peak levels of your ability that you might not have been able to do for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, etc. And then how do we then maintain that and continuously, I want to say continuously push the boundaries, but that's not all. The reason that I want to do that is because I just want to continuously challenge us to the place where when someone goes like, hey dude, I just want to maintain where I'm at here. And then maybe that's the jump off point really for me for clients, because I don't know, maybe in 30 years I'll have a different story, but I don't know any time in my life that I'm not going to be trying to push my own boundaries. And so, like, if somebody's at that maintenance level, I don't know if that I'm a great person for them at the maintenance level, because I'm always going to be a crazy person pushing my own boundaries. So, but I think the gap that we have is that pain-free to return to activity again, and helping people prepare through that phase, because that phase is, there's so many potholes, landmines, and thorny bushes along that journey. Like I was talking with someone today, she started working with me in January, initially with an ankle and foot issue. Then it, like, that has dulled and improved pretty substantially, where she's only getting occasional flare-ups now when she's very active. And then it went to like a adductor slash groin issue, and that has by and large went away as well. And now it's a hip issue, right? And so we're starting to get back to the source more, or as Thomas used to talk about, like always returning to the core, or always returning to the spine. And when I first started working with this person, I was like, I don't think that you have a. I think you have a foot ankle issue that is really a hip low back issue because of the symptoms that she was talking about. And so now, like something like Achilles, like if you have an Achilles issue or you have shin splints, that's a much more local issue. That's more soft tissue related. Hers was definitely more nervy feeling, or nerve. It was giving me nerve indications. So, and now, like, the summer's coming up, and she wants to become more active, wants to get back on her bike again. And so now we're just trying to unravel that hip thing. And I think that hip thing will eventually turn into a low back thing, and then, hopefully resolve itself from there. So, but she's picked up other capacities or capabilities along the way. I mean, like, I was super impressed. She told me she was doing external rotation with 12 pounds.
Wow.
And I was like, damn. I remember when I made 5 pounds look like 500, right? So, along the way in that rehab journey and that return to activity journey, the thing that I feel that is important for people to hear is that you can rehab something and also gain other capabilities as well along the way. In the beginning, I typically look at just kind of narrowing in on the injury itself, so we can get through that as quick as possible. But it's completely possible for us to gain other capabilities. And as you're in that rehab phase, as you're in that strengthening phase, you're going to gain other capabilities because that pain that you have is more often than not weakness somewhere in the chain of your body, right? From like when people say, "Well, I have a wrist issue," yeah, you don't, unless you fell on your wrist. You don't really, most of the time, you don't have a wrist issue. You have an elbow issue, that's a shoulder issue, that's a neck issue, right? So we got to kind of go back to that, to the root cause or the source of it. So, but like, and then you can turn something that is a liability into a strong point as you go, because what will wind up happening is that as we go through this process, we'll find out a lot about what's going on with our body, right? And then we have the opportunity to learn so much more about the body, and as we do that, then I think that's really where that confidence grows. Like last week, I posted that video of me doing 3 Nordics. Well, one, I can remember when I would cramp thinking about a Nordic. I'd cramp watching somebody on YouTube do a Nordic. My hamstrings would cramp. Two, even though I'd done two, about 3 or 4 weeks before that, in my brain, when I got up there to do the first one, there's a little bit of a pause, and in my brain, there's a voice in the back of my brain going, "You're not going to get 3. There's no way." Right? And then you have to battle that voice. And when you're near your max capacity, that's when you start to really run into that thing, right? Like I don't run into that thing at a 45-degree angle when I'm starting to do some warm-ups. Like my brain doesn't tell me I can't do that anymore, right? Because it knows that it's a liar. But it 100% believes that I can't do 3, or it did last week. So I think that's where the confidence grows in your body. And then really, that is anything that you want to get good at in life. I don't care what it is, right? When you start something, you're terrible at it. It doesn't matter what it is. I've yet to meet someone that is, a virtuoso right off the bat. If you gave Melissa and I went and saw the Michael Jackson biopic on Friday. And if someone up from the outside looking in didn't understand anything about Michael Jackson's life, especially at the time that he came up in with music and black artists at that time, and what was going on in the music scene at that time, everybody would look at it and go, "Oh, he was just talented and could sing and could dance." But like they show a little bit in the movie, and if you know anything about Motown, which was really the epicenter of a lot of pop and kind of rock music at that time for black artists, if you know anything about Motown, they had a whole formula down. If you look at the Temptations, the Four Tops, Diana Ross and Supremes, they had a formula down of how that they could get a group, or even like a solo artist with Aretha, right? They could get a group, or Stevie Wonder, because Stevie Wonder was on Motown for a second. They had this whole formula. And Michael Jackson's dad knew about that formula a bit, and so he put those kids when he was in the Jackson 5 early on in the formula. But yeah, I'm sure Michael Jackson could sing pretty decently when he was 3 or 4, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be able to do that thing at 12, 15, or 20, right? So you're terrible whenever you start something. And now it's whether or not you decide whether or not you have the interest level to gain the skills and capability to go on and go past that, or you just go like, "I'm terrible at computer programming, and you know what? I have zero interest in getting good at it. Zero, less than zero, -25." And so, like, that little voice in the back of my head that tells me I'm terrible, bro, you are right, because I got other things to do, right? Now, with a Nordic, he's a liar, and I'm going to prove to him he's a liar. And so I think that's how you gain some capabilities and confidence in your own body. So that's really when I look at the hole that's in the rehab, going from going from not having ability to gaining ability and then surpassing that ability. The whole is that kind of middle part there when you're just most of the time you go see a practitioner or a provider and they can get you out of that pain cycle. What happens after that? There's a big fat hole in the market where not a lot of people, because it's not a place where people really operate in. You know, they just don't operate in that, and few and far between people do, and I think it's a place where people get very frustrated because then it's a marketplace of treatments and interventions and not really searching for solutions. So there's 16 minutes of me rambling. What do you think about that rambling, Sonia?
I really relate to what you were talking about, how when you start working on specific exercises or muscle groups, like
Yeah,
rotator, whatever, and
yeah,
how open up or create so much other possibilities for your body.
yeah,
Like, for example, because of my injury, which I hit the week 5 last week, and I'm on the mend. It's feeling a
nice,
lot, and I'm starting to add back in exercises. But I had totally gotten rid of the ankle protocol for 4 weeks.
yeah,
But anyway, so I was doing the couch stretch
uh-huh.
and the elephant walk instead. And now I'm back to doing Patrick step ups, and my glute med is on. And that's because of the couch stretch, because I
Yeah,
have to hold my stability, and it is so hard
yeah.
for me to hold that stretch with stability because I have the flexibility to do it.
Interesting. Interesting. What an interesting place too. Like what an interesting strategic byproduct. That's what one of my business coaches would call that. In
Okay.
business, that's like a strategic byproduct, right? Who would have thought the couch stretch would have helped your
Yeah.
step up? Yeah.
And the elephant stretch, um, all of a sudden I have got more dorsiflexion.
Oh, interesting.
I can actually feel my calves actually stretching.
Really
I can actually feel them stretching.
interesting.
I don't know. And
My brain is trying to rationalize this right now.
or I don't know if that has. I just was trying to think of what had been doing differently, and it was the couch stretch and the
And the
elephant.
alpha, yeah. Well, I mean, in theory, there is a little bit of ankle dorsiflexion in there as you're
Mhm.
picking up your foot, right?
Right.
And you're setting your heel down. I mean, it's not a lot. I mean, you're getting way more plantar flexion in there for sure.
Mhm.
Maybe it's that increased plantar flexion, and then the hamstring stretch that's
I think,
allowing you. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I think
yeah.
it's getting into some other parts of my hamstring that I don't
Oh,
really get into.
interesting. Interesting. Huh.
So yeah.
Again, like you don't know what you don't know until you start monkeying around with stuff. You know, it's
Mhm.
it's pretty strange. That I've seen all kinds of that stuff with jujitsu. Like there's stuff that I wasn't able to do. I remember one time I was training with a guy, and I was on his back, and there's this you figure for your legs around the body, and they call it a body triangle. Well, previous to this, I wasn't able to do the body triangle with my left leg because of my old meniscus tear, and my knee didn't like it. And then when I tore my right meniscus, my right leg didn't like that flexed position around because it's unhinging or opening up my knee more. And I remember I got on this guy's back, and I just did a body triangle. Didn't even occur to me not to. And I did it, and I opened my leg, and I purposely got out of the position to go back to it again to see what it felt like. And when I went back to it again and it was okay, I whispered in his ear, I was like, "Oh, you guys are in trouble now." It's like I can body triangle, my knee doesn't hurt. And like, that was a strategic byproduct. I was just trying to make my knee feel better. And it felt better enough to where the point I could do body triangles and I didn't have any pain. So, I mean, there's all these little capabilities that we gain that we don't realize. Um, but yeah, how very cool. How very cool. And it's funny because we've talked about that glute med coming on with a knee extension, right?
Yep.
In
Yep.
your step up.
Yeah.
And how you weren't able to really kind of feel it.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So when you do couch stretches, have you noticed that you're getting more stable in that as well?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
yeah. Uh,
Yeah. Those are more about stability for me than
so
just.
crazy. And funny enough, it's the inverse. It was the inverse for me. It was
Okay.
never about stability for me. It was
Uh-huh.
about my damn tight hip and my stupid tight quads.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I've been able to get on my second set because I'll do three on tomorrow. I do mobility on Wednesdays, like it's just a mobility um, workout. And so on my second set last week, my right hip opened up. Usually it's my third set, and I got to kind of force myself shoulders to the wall. And last week, like I just kind of plopped back there on my right side. I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't expecting this already. So, but it took me. Well, I mean, it's taken me 5 years to get there to where I've been able to like I'm semi comfortable. I held the couch stretch on my third set last week for 40 seconds, shoulders to wall. Um, and I remember when I first started doing them, I was like, why does it feel like somebody's flailing my quad and my hip flexor off my body? Because
Uh-huh.
it's so tight.
Uh-huh.
So
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And then the other comment I had was what you were talking about the gap with PT and then,
yep,
after, because I run into that all the time with my clients. They
yeah,
go to PT and they do the PT for their neck or their
yeah,
shoulder
yeah,
or whatever. And they feel good doing the PT, but then they're left with, well, then what? So then it's up to me to try to load them,
yep,
exercises for that. But
yep.
otherwise, they're just left dangling.
Yeah, they're either left dangling or they got a stack of papers about this
Yeah.
big, you
Yeah.
know, or they've got like, well, and the real problem is that we have to look at PT's job in the profession
Yeah.
that they're in,
Right.
right?
Right.
But we have met through various things that we've done, lots of very talented, smart, and well-meaning PTs. So by no stretch of the imagination would I try to talk about a PT. I mean, I've met terrible PTs. I've met terrible massage therapists. I've met terrible chiropractors. Blah 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 blah. I've met terrible people at McDonald's. Right. So
Mhm.
that's it's not a dig at the industry by any stretch of the imagination. But the gap there exists because the way the insurance company
Yeah.
cares or doesn't care, whatever we think about that, right?
Right.
The way the insurance industry feels about our, once we're out of their care, um, there's nothing really left. And again, like, so let's pretend that you were going to go see, after that, let's pretend that you were going to go see a chiropractor who specializes in rehab. Well, you're going to run into the same problem there as well, right? If they take insurance dollars and you're paying insurance dollars, then it's a problem. It's why for me, if people work with me, I will give them the option to use HSA or FSA money
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're putting that money aside anyways. And
Right.
most of the time, on some occasions, when there's lots of bureaucracy in the organization that they work for. Like I was working with one woman, and she was working with she worked for a university, and so her HSA, their HSA plan wouldn't let her use, for me.
Oh,
Um,
really?
but of the 10 years that I've been here in Minnesota, I used a little bit of HSA FSA in Michigan, but I've used a lot. I used a lot more here in Minnesota. Of the 10 years that I've been in Minnesota, I can only think of on a small, like a very few times where people, people aren't able to use their HSA money.
Mhm.
But so if you're going to set that money aside anyways, then
Yeah,
like why not use it on something? You're going to use it on something. So
right.
like we bought our rack with HSA money,
Oh, okay.
you know.
Yeah,
So so yeah, I mean, yeah. So I mean that gap exists because of just the way the things work out. But still, like if you talk to people from the UK, that gap still exists over there as well, right? So when you're out of care, you're out into the wild, and
right.
then it becomes then you have to go see somebody that's more likely than not cash pay, because it should be a longevity program. And I was talking to someone the other day. Um, my knee rehab will never be done, right? I'm
Right.
always rehabbing my knee,
Yep,
you know?
I know.
My, yeah. So no, I may not have pain. I may have regained lots of ability. I've gained ability that I haven't had in a long time, if ever, right?
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that I'm not in my head. I'm still not rehabbing my knee. Um, so yeah, I think it's that gap is an interesting place in the market. And then because there's no inherent benefit in the beginning of specializing in that area, there's so very few people that do it, right? Because in order to specialize in that area, you have to be willing to take a risk to go out on a limb and say, hey, I can help you with this, and we're going to develop a plan. And for people who are new, that's a very hard thing to do. That's a very hard thing to have the confidence in. And then if you've been around for a while, what winds up happening is that you either haven't formulated a, you haven't you haven't had enough opportunities to put a program or programs into place to see the holes in the program, right? So that you can then autocorrect and continue to move on. Or what happens is that you you don't allow yourself enough time to achieve the results that you want to achieve for your client, and then to show the proof of your work. So like people, if they want to work with me, they got to sign up. It's a year. And why do I want a year? Because I want the time to deliver upon my promise. And also I want the time to explore the things that I'm interested in. So I'm interested in helping people get out of pain and recover from injuries, but I'm really interested in helping you perform at a level that you haven't performed in a long time, if ever. Because I actually see that as the long-term benefit of what I'm currently doing now. I can very easily go back to seeing people in 6 week windows and be very successful at that because I was, right? But that's not solely where my interest lies any longer. My interest lies in I want to get us past that place because A, I'm very good at doing that. And then B, I want to then start to explore what we can do with you from that pain-free and starting to get capable phase, and then beyond that. How can we set up a plan that's built for longevity where you're continuously improving your capabilities? And so, there's that gap there because nobody does that. There are very few people that do that. So,
Right.
so yeah, I mean, and then like, so when I look at like people that, and also like I'm not interested in, yes, I write programming for people. But I'm writing the programming for people not because I want to entertain them while I'm programming for them. I have zero interest in being in front of someone and then saying like, all right, let me move that weight pin down another 10 pounds. Let's go. I don't want to do that. I'm not interested in that whatsoever. I almost rather go back and listen to Enya that do that. Almost. Right? So, but what I am interested in is I'm interested in watching you learn a ton more about your body so that you can gain the confidence in there. And basically, I'm just a cheerleader and the puppet master behind those things, right? So yeah, there's a big gap there for people, and it can be very frustrating. So yeah. Well, so yeah, I'm super excited to hear about that glute med. That's a big development.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So when I get back to my split squats, it's going to be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so that benefit is in the split squats, and it's all those things, but really, that is a huge source of balance,
Right.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So I mean, like that has long term uh, um, that has long-term implications on your longevity going forward, right? Because
Right.
I don't know much about getting older, but here's what I do know. If you'd like to die quickly, here's how you do it: fall, break a hip, get a surgery, go to the hospital, pick up the flu or pneumonia, and it's the wraps, right? Like it's over,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So we want to avoid that for as long as we possibly can, you know.
Absolutely.
So, well, very cool, Sonia. Very cool. I'm
Yeah.
very excited to hear about that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Sean.
You're very welcome. I will not be here next week. Next week is not
Okay.
me standing you up. We'll be driving back from Michigan. We're going back home for Melissa's dad's 90th birthday party. So I'm putting 32 pounds of pork shoulder on the grill tomorrow because I'm making pulled pork for a bunch of people. Well, for about 40 people. so um, so yeah,
Okay.
So we'll be in Michigan. We leave Thursday, and then we're driving back on Tuesday. So
Okay. Well,
all right,
enjoy.
good,
Yeah.
good. Well,
Okay.
Sonia, thanks for listening to me ramble for another 30 minutes, and I'm really excited about your progress. This is cool to hear.
Thank you, Sean, and
Yes,
enjoy your
yes,
pulled pork.
I will. I will. All right, we'll talk to you in a couple weeks. Have a good night.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.